to save is equal to new array list. So we're going to create a list of these guys, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to add each of these targets to this target to save, right? So we're going to do targets to save dot add target, and then the method that we're going to use, it's in parse object, and it's called save all in background. So then we're just going to save these targets, and we're going to register a callback that'll be fired when all the targets have been saved. And what is it called? It's a new save callback. So then when the save has finished, we're going to check to see if we have any kind of errors. If we don't have any errors, then we're just going to, or if we do have any errors, then we're going to print out the error. Otherwise, we are going to tell the user that the targets have been saved successfully. Private void on target saved, right? So then now when the targets have been saved, the next step is to send a push notification or a notification to all of the users that we're targeting, right? We're not going to do that quite yet. We're just going to save these targets, and then we're gonna test it out. So let's see here. We need to pass this in right here, friends. Or no, sorry, other way around. We want to pass in the friends as the second parameter. Okay, so that looks good, but we still have one more piece right here. We need to actually populate we need to take this JSON and we need to fetch the actual parse users that correspond to each of those IDs. Alright, so the way we're going to do this is we need another method. Private void fetch friend for ID. So we're going to fetch the friend for a given ID, right? So if we look here, we see that these IDs are all strings. So we need to grab this ID. So given an ID, right? We're going to look in this user class. Is there, yeah, so there may be a way we can do this. So what if we have an array of strings? I believe this might work. So if we have parse user dot get query, so then we can do where matches, where ends with where, let's see here. What we're looking for is a method that'll take in an array of parameters, basically. I'm not sure if that actually exists. So what we could do, we could be kind of clever about this. We notice that we can chain these together, right? So what we can do is we're equal to Facebook ID, and then we can do, for example, ID at I. So if we loop through this list of IDs, let me rename this parameter to IDs. So if we loop through this list, right, if we do for each ID in this list, right, and then we just create a query for that, right? So parse user dot get query, we're equal to Facebook ID, right? Then if we create a list of these queries, so the way we would do this is we would do, let me see here. So we would do a list of parse query friends queries is equal to new list. Sorry, is equal to new array list. We don't want to instantiate the list type. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to do friends queries dot add, and so then we're going to add this query that we just created to the list of queries. Now the next step is to, let's see here, I believe it's called parse query dot or. So this or method, it's pretty great. What it does is it takes each of these queries, right, and then it adds an or condition in between them. So the first query, for example, it fetches the ID for the Facebook user. It fetches the parse user whose Facebook ID is maybe like 945, whatever, right? Then the second query, it fetches the parse user for the Facebook ID that is, 120, whatever, right? Now what it does is it ORs them together. So it fetches this one and it fetches this one, right? So we're going to OR them, so which tells parse to fetch all of the parse users associated with any of those IDs, and then we're going to do, let's see here, we want to find all of these guys in background. So we're going to find these guys in background, new find callback, and now because this is an OR, I believe, okay, so I made a slight miscalculation here. We need to pass in another generic parameter right here, which tells us what kind of object we're going to be fetching. Now that we do this, we can do parse query, and then this is going to be a parse user, and then we can do or, and then we can pass in friends queries, and then we can, let's see, did that not work? What did I miss? Do I not include this generic type right there? That's kind of confusing. So there we go, so that'll work. New find callback. And there we go, so now we can check to see if the error is null. Otherwise, we can print out the error. And now that we have this, we can also pass in a friends listener. Friends ready listener. And then we can just do, we should always be, we should do listener dot on friends ready list. So I'm actually not going to put it there. We always want to fire the callback. If we get an error, then we just want to say that we got a null response, right? But we don't. If we don't fire this callback, right, then this guy won't get notified, and then that guy won't get notified, so we won't know what actually happened in the chain of events. Okay, so that's great. Now we have a method that'll extract all the parse users for the IDs. However, we're still working with a JSON object, so we need to actually extract all of these IDs and put them inside of a string array now, right? And that's another problem. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to just create a method, and that's going to be called extract IDs for JSON. So we're going to pass in a JSON object. So we're just going to call it response JSON because whatever, we don't really want to worry about that too much, right? And so then what we're going to do is we're going to do response JSON dot, let's see here, by the way, this JSON object, it corresponds to the JSON functionality found on the Android platform. Some of you guys may have used like something like JSON or I don't know, like Retrofit or whatever. We're not going to use any of those right here just because we don't really need to. I mean, we're working with pretty simple JSON, but in the future, you know, you might want to use those. So now, so now what are we going to do? We need to go inside of the data object, right? So we're going to do response JSON dot opt JSON object, and that's going to be, let's see here, that's going to be, so it's data, right? And so we want to make sure JSON object data is equal to that, right? So then we want to make sure that the data is not equal to null. We just a defensive check to make sure that we're not working with bad data. So we're going to add that in right there. So if the data is not equal to null, then what we're going to do is, let's see here. So data is actually a JSON array, so not a JSON object, JSON array. So then we're going to opt a JSON array. And so then what we're going to do is we're going to loop through this JSON array for int I. We can't use iterator syntax just because the JSON library doesn't support it. I is less than, so we have to use the normal for loop dot length, and then we do I++, right? And so then what we need is, we need all of these guys, right? So we need to instantiate a string array is equal to new string, and the string array's length is just going to be equal to the length of the JSON array, right? And then what we're going to do is IDs at I is equal to data dot opt JSON object at I dot opt string, and then the key we want is ID. And let's see here, I believe we're good. We just need to return this IDs array, right? And then what we're going to do is we're just going to call this method extract IDs for JSON response JSON. So let's see here. What we want to do now is we have a, let's see, we have a list of IDs, and so we're gonna pass that into fetch friends for IDs, and we're gonna pass in this listener that we have up here. So then it's just going to kind of propagate upwards. It's going to bubble upwards, and then now that we've done that, we're fetching the friends, and then once we have the friends, we're just going to be saving the photo. All right, I think we're good. Let's test this out. I'm going to run this on my device right here. Okay, so let's see here, let me turn on my screen sharing. So I want to do ADB shell, and then I want to do screen record SD card Android tutorial vids, and then we're going to call this sending photos on .mp4. I apologize that I'm doing this a lot, but it's nice. I kind of want to just keep showing you guys this because it's a pretty cool feature. Anyways, so what we're going to do now is, this is called when I do take photo. So what is going on here? So I'm taking the photo, right? Yeah, so it takes the photo, right? Then I open up my gallery. I'm gonna pick a photo. Should do some math homework right here. And let's see here, what is going to happen. So one of the kind of mistakes I made here is I didn't put any logging in. So we don't actually know what happened, right? There's no indication. Let's check to see if any photo targets got saved. So it doesn't look like any photo targets got saved. So what we need to do now is let's see what happens. We can use the debugger. So I'm just gonna put some breakpoints here, and I'm gonna put some breakpoints there, and we're gonna see if we got any JSON, and then we also want to fetch this right there. All right, then I'm just going to debug. I'm gonna attach the debugger. I'm gonna take another photo. I'm gonna choose another photo from my gallery. I'm just gonna use the same photo. Alright, so it looks like the on activity result is indeed being fired. It looks like the photo is okay, so that's not the problem. Let's look at the JSON response that we're getting. It looks like we do have some JSON. And let's look at the IDs. So these IDs look good. And let's just compare them. It's like 152. So yeah, so the IDs look good, so that's not the problem. So then let's jump into the fetch friends for IDs method. I'm just gonna, actually I'm not even gonna do that, I'm just gonna jump right in. Let's see if anything gets called. So this, yeah, so okay. So here we go. So we have a problem right here. It turns out that the list has 0 items. We also are not getting any kind of error. Okay, so I know where the error is. We're looking at the Facebook ID field, but then none of these guys have the Facebook ID populated. I mean, none of these guys in the user class have the Facebook ID field populated, and that's because we just created the Facebook ID field. Alright, so how do we fix that? Well, the easy way to do this is inside of here in the login login activity, right? We are logging in with read permissions, but what we're going to do is when the login is successful, before we call on login success, we're going to init the Facebook data, or initialize the Facebook data, which in our case is just fetching the ID. So we're going to init the Facebook data. We're going to get rid of that method call right there. And what we're going to do is we're going to do graph request dot new me request. Okay, so this me request is going to contain some basic information. So we just need to pass in the access token, and then we just need a new graph JSON API callback, or object callback. And let's see here, I think we're good. Do we need to do anything else? I think we need to call execute async. So let me double check that by going up here. So yeah, so we create the graph request, and then we just do that. So we're gonna do execute async, and then what we're gonna do is let us log some of this data. Or no, just for simplicity's sake, I already know that it's in opstring ID string Facebook. So you guys are just gonna have to trust me on this. It's already in there. It's in. So then once we grab the Facebook ID, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna do parse user dot get current user dot put, and then we're just gonna do Facebook ID as Facebook ID. So then once we do that, we're going to save the current user. Let's save in background. We're going to save, and then we're just going to do, if e is equal to null, then we'll just do on login success, otherwise e.print stack trace. Alright, so that's going to work. For now, though, I don't want to go through the whole process of logging in and out with these extremely long emails, or what for these accounts or these test users. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy these user IDs, just because it'll take way too long. So I'm just going to copy it, put it in right there, and then there was one more, this guy right here, Joe. I'm going to, let's see here, I want to put it, oh crap. So which one was Joe? So I believe, yeah, this guy's Joe. Alright, there we go. So now what we're going to do, or what I'm going to do is, let's see here, I'm going to try to take the photo again. So let me record my screen, let's see what happens now. So I'm going to take photo, I'm going to do gallery, and let me actually put in the debugger really quickly, just so we know what happens. So this is the crucial method that was missing, or the crucial part that wasn't quite working before. Alright, so I'm going to put my debugger there, I'm going to put that there, and let's see what happens. Hopefully the method gets called. I probably should have put a breakpoint in right there. So let me double check. Do we get any new photo targets? Alright, so it doesn't look like we got any new photo targets. Okay, so here's what we'll do. Instead of trying to do it the clever way with batch requests, we're just going to save all of these guys. So I'm going to comment this guy out right here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to do target.save in background. New save callback, and if e is equal to null, then else, print stack trace. Alright, okay, so here we go. I'm going to run it again. Okay, there we go. So we got it. I don't know what was going on. I think it was just... Alright, so let me just double check the photo and the file. And there we go. Okay, so we got photo targets to save dynamically. Awesome. So now, watch this. If we... Or I guess I don't really want to show it because I'd have to log in. But if we log in with the other user, then and we were to click View Photos, then we would see the photos that were targeted toward us because we've already built in the functionality for viewing the photo targets. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.